Bells,
Here.
Stocker, Hill,
I'm here.
Rada, Igualma,
Here.
Ms. Jones Smith, here. Ms. Wall. Ms. Milburn, here. Ms. Hill.
Here.
And Chair Brown.
And since I believe we do have a quorum, our Chair Brown could not be here with us in attendance, but he would like to join by Zoom. So if you do need a motion from somebody to a second, allow him to join by Zoom.
I'll make a motion for Chair Brown to attend via Zoom. Second.
Welcome, Bill. Great, okay, next on the agenda is I do need an approval for minutes from the June 11th meeting. For
Make a motion.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
These minutes are approved, and then we'll open up the floor for input if you have anybody here from the public who would like to. Thank you.
Rain has been detected near your location.
So do we have any old business that we want to go over? If there are any old business over staff? All right, and from new business tonight, we have our city manager, Nicole Williams. I don't know who else will be doing the presentation, but she'll be going over the 2026 proposed operating budget. So yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought I started. Do you want to go ahead? I know we have to. And can Bill see?
Oh, okay, awesome. So, good evening, everyone. So as we begin, you all had the preliminary budget. When we get ready to go to propose, this is where we talk about the all funds budget. And so a lot of the things that you saw during those meetings with the departments, especially those who have non-general budget, this is where you get to see those decision packages that were approved and all of that information. It's all been released publicly, but what we wanted to do tonight was really give you the bigger picture of what the all funds budget looks like, any of the revenue changes that we've had. We'll also be sharing what the city manager rolled out in the proposed budget message with plan for the year. And so as we go through, of course, if you have any questions, it's always a very interactive discussion. Laura is going to kick us off by talking about, the funds that have come in this year and giving us that grand picture, and then the city manager will talk.
You bet. So, as you mentioned, we reviewed in detail the preliminary budget with you at your last meeting in preparation for the joint meeting with the commission. We're going to be reviewing a few of those items again, such as the ad valorem. We're going to go over the tax bill comparison, some key takeaways of the proposed budget, the operating budget by fund, and I'll go over where the money comes from, where the money goes in the general fund. And then I'll turn it over to Yvette and the manager, and they'll talk about the proposed reorganization and some of the changes in personnel that are included in the proposed budget. So with that, in June, we talked about the additional revenue that would be generated from the ad valorem revenue. July 1st is when we get the official value from the property appraiser that we're required to use as part of the adopted budget. The good news is that went up slightly between the June 1st value and July 1st value by around $200 million. So that will generate an additional $705,000 to the general fund that will put on the changes adopted for that. And again, that really didn't change much or anything on the proposed military. So just as a reminder, for resident with average taxable value for a single family home of $641,000, with all of the increases that will be on the notice that they will receive in the month of August. it'll be around $183 more per year, or around $15.25 per month. Some key takeaways from the proposed budget is the proposed budget includes a lot of information, but it addresses the commission's highest priorities. It prioritizes public safety and infrastructure improvements, accelerates the completion of capital projects, maintains a healthy fund balance, and is structurally balanced. So, the city manager's message really does a great job of providing all of those things, but those are the takeaways we hope that you'll bring after hearing about the proposed budget. So the proposed operating budget is around this year $1.2 billion. Which is, and of that, around 44% comes from the general fund, so just under 50%. The second largest portion of the budget is water and sewer and central regional, which are the funds that are paid by our users for the treatment of water and wastewater meters. In the general fund, $520.5 million is the budget this year. And again, I emphasized to you last time, we have diversified revenue sources. The fact that ad valorem taxes account for a little less than 50% of our revenues, that's a good spot to be in. And we also get intergovernmental revenues, license permits, franchise, fire assessment, as our revenues there. In the general fund, public safety is the primary users of our funding. 60% of our general fund budget is dedicated to our police and fire services throughout the city, and transportation and development services, public works, and other services make up the others. And alternative Kristen.
So as we look at changes in the proposed FTEs over the last year, you'll notice that changes 6 FTEs in the general fund and 64 in our next slide will go into a little more information on those changes. But the thing that's important to note here is that since 2016, 75% of the employees that we've added have really been towards public safety. And the reason for that is to keep pace with the growth of our city. We want to make sure that our public safety personnel are also growing in relation to that amount. Yes, sir.
Out of the 25% that are going to public safety, the increase, where did it come from mostly?
So it's really across the board. So it's everything from the city manager's office. Yeah, the charter offices. We added positions to the commission office a few years ago. But really every department that's not public safety has really had at least one increase over the last. And then this is a more detailed breakdown of what that snapshot looks like. And as you say 64, that number sounds really large, but it's important to note that 28 of those positions are associated with the SAFER grant. So this, even though we accepted it during FY25, we compare adopted to adopted. And so 28 of those are associated with the SAFER grant. We also had some contractual obligations under our Prospect Lake Clean Water Center, and that required that we added 18 positions to support that. Our IT, we're really focusing on public safety IT, so making sure that we're compliant with all of the CJIS requirements, ensuring that our public safety not only have the staffing they need, but also the support staffing that they need, given the way that the dynamic of how public safety is provided has changed. And so we're adding 7 positions specifically to public safety IT, as well as 2 additional IT related positions. So it is a lot of growth, but a lot of it was either grant funded or items that we contractually had to do associated with bringing on a new water treatment plant.
I know in the discussions, a lot of time they talk about cybersecurity. Are they getting additional support in cybersecurity?
And so IT is focused on cybersecurity in a couple of different ways, but one of the the funding sources that they're having is to bring on more cybersecurity consulting related services, which is how they, were seeking those additional services. But yeah, they receive it through consulting services, and they also have a state grant that they've received over the last few years, which continues to provide additional cybersecurity support.
That's on the bill, related to information technology. We have appointed a new IT director who will be starting on Friday. So I'm very interested to see how he, his name's Ron McKenzie, is coming to us from the city of Deerfield Beach. I'm interested to see his perspective on our IT operations and, any recommendations that he may have to augment the services that we currently provide. So the last time that I met with you, we were discussing a little louder?
A little bit.
Okay, we're discussing the preliminary budget. We're here at the proposed budget, and I gotta tell you that when I first walked in the door as city manager, I recognized very quickly that our city is one that is based on tradition. And I think tradition is always very good, but I also bring a fresh perspective and potentially, a new approach to doing things. And so the structure of the organization essentially has been the same for the last 10 to 15 years. And I had to realize very quickly that anything that I would view as a minor tweak might mean something different for the organization. It might look like a seismic shift. And I came in and I told everyone, just stay in place. I'm gonna take the next couple of months to evaluate everything, to meet with the departments, to meet with the senior leadership team, to take a look at everyone's budget proposals and their prior budget allocations. And so I really was very deliberate in my approach to evaluating the organization. It's one thing to look at it from the outside, and I did a lot of that before I was appointed to this role. But coming in and taking a look and sort of living and breathing it is a whole different thing. And so the first order of business really was to align the city manager's office with what I think are the core functional areas. So when I came in, we had several acting assistant city managers, assistant city managers, and I really wanted to align the functions that I saw as the most relevant for the city to operate efficiently. And so there is a public safety element within the city manager's office in terms of my direct reports with fire and police. There is an operational element. There's an element of external services and internal services, and what I hope will be an element focused on capital projects, because I think that's an area where we could see a lot of improvement. And I think I've mentioned that before the last time that we spoke. And so I am seeking to maintain the same level of executive leadership that we've seen in the city manager's office over the past year. Just did a couple of shifts to make sure that we're aligned and that the portfolio of departments under each assistant city manager focuses on a certain functional area. And so you would have seen that in the organizational chart that's included with your package. Also, I took a look at our public affairs division within the city manager's office and seeing how we could streamline that function a little bit more. Also wanted to bring out the economic development function within the city manager's office and provide it with more support and resources. And as you may know, Ms. Desiree, as a city manager, that you want to put people in a position to succeed. And so I've tried to do that with the way that I've proposed our realignment of personnel resources. I think there are some that believe that if you put something in the city manager's office, that means it's gonna get done. That means everyone's gonna pay attention to it, focus on it. And one of the key changes that we're proposing is to move the chief waterways officer out of the city manager's office and put that position within the public works department to align that function with some of the other teams that already work in the sustainability space. And also to just give that added support, added level of resources that would not be able to be achieved in the city manager's office. And the economic development team, that's another group that I felt could use more support. And as you'll hear later, with the proposed community services department, the economic development division would really thrive in a space that had other divisions that tied in. So for example, the economic development division would work closely with housing, and also we're taking our homeless initiatives from the city manager's office and putting it with the housing team that would be in the future community services department. So it's really just trying to align resources and functional areas in a way that offers the most support. As you see on the slide here, I'm sure you've reviewed, you know, some of the goals of this is really just to make sure that we have accountability, responsiveness, to ensure that department directors have all the tools they need to be accountable for the areas that they're responsible for. And sometimes with departments, you know, of 300, 400, 500 people, it can be difficult for a single director to know what's going on and to have the details and to really be able to be responsive and to be accountable for the actions of the members of their team and the deliverables that are expected out of that particular department. So overall, we are going from 10 departments to 16 departments, and some of them are easy to digest. So for example, in the city manager's office, the strategic communications division is currently a part of the city manager's office. It functions very independently already. We have Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, another division of the city manager's office that doesn't necessarily need to be part of the city manager's office. If you know anything about executive leadership, or if you've looked at other cities, the city manager's office is not necessarily one that has 50, 60 people as part of it. That's really where you have your smallest group. That's where your leadership team is, and those other functional areas fall under members of the city manager's office. So FXE and strategic communications will become their own departments. The other capital projects department, one that we've spoken about a few times, we're doing an initial launch for that department, not going all in just yet, meaning that we are taking some of the team members from the transportation and mobility department that work on projects, as well as members of the Parks and Recreation team, those folks responsible for the Parks Bond. So you'll see that that department is going to be a smaller group. Ultimately, we are also looking at the Public Works Department down the road to see if there are some synergies or some realignments that would be necessary to promote effective capital project delivery. But for the moment, it's a soft initial launch for the capital projects department. Procurement services, if you didn't know any better, you would think procurement was already its own department. It does function very independently. It's part of the finance team. They're actually located separate from most of the finance department already. And so I'm looking for the leadership within the procurement services division to step up and to be able to stand on their own. I think a lot of people like to either praise procurement or blame procurement for something. And I'm ready to see how procurement functions as a standalone department, which in some cities it is standalone, in some cities it's part of another department. There is no 100% right way to do it. But I felt that with the leadership in place in procurement now, that we could make that change without seeing any negatives come out of it. In addition, I want to talk about the community services department a little bit more. Development services is one of those mega departments, and what I've proposed to do is separate the functions. Development services would maintain those more regulatory functions related to development, so building services, planning and zoning, landscape, and what are the other functions, Sean? Did I miss anything? Okay. And then to separate the community services aspects to include business tax, customer service, that economic development division, cultural affairs, and community enhancement. So I'd like the community services department to be forward-facing in terms of our neighbors and our business community, and to allow the development services team to focus on private development. And hopefully that will mean more satisfaction for all of our stakeholder groups. And I just think it's very difficult to have one person that's over, that many functions and that many personnel resources. And then the other big change is with utility services coming out or separating from the Public Works Department. The utility services team already is about 300 people on its own. Public Works, or what would be the balance left after utilities would separate, is about 200 people. And the utilities team already very independent. We're currently in the process of evaluating all of the positions within Public Works that also, includes utilities right now, to make sure that the separation would be seamless and that we would have all of the administrative areas covered for both departments. And we've done a lot of that legwork already. We still need to fine tune things and make sure that individuals are cross-trained and are able to handle whatever comes their way once the separation happens. And the overall goal is really to just make sure that we put people in a position to succeed, to do their best, to deliver for our city, and to be responsible for areas that they either have expertise in, or to lean on other members of the team that do similar work so that we can augment the resources that we have. So ultimately, I didn't really, like I mentioned, I didn't consider that the tweaks that I would be recommending would potentially be received as a major shift. But looking at it now, and the fact that we haven't had an outside city manager in the city of Fort Lauderdale for over a decade, I definitely understand that it could, potentially cause some angst. So we are going through the process now of how we communicate the proposed changes with our personnel. We're planning to have a staff meeting where we invite personnel citywide to just talk through some of the proposed changes, knowing that ultimately the city commission will decide on what the organization would look like. But this is my best effort to realign our resources, to be more efficient, more effective, and to really make a difference that pushes Fort Lauderdale forward. And Yvette will actually go through the nitty-gritty of
You got it.
of the changes.
Amazing. So really, we just wanted to make sure that we were showing you how people were shifting, because a lot of this isn't about creating new positions. It's more about shifting responsibilities. And so the city manager already talked about the capital projects team. We have over $2 billion in capital projects. And so this team is just phase one of what it will ultimately look like. But specifically, as we look at our Parks Bond projects, which are now getting into the implementation phase, we really wanted to make sure that those team members had the support that they needed to advance those projects quickly. The community services department, again, this team is really comprised of team members from across the city, specifically ensuring alignment with our homelessness services and our housing and community development team. So before, homelessness was based in the city manager's office. And then we had another group that received a lot of our federal funds that supported our housing and homelessness initiatives that were based in development services. This brings those two teams together to ensure that they're working collaboratively to advance these initiatives, and also creates the new economic development component. And here you see exactly.
CRA as well.
So the CRA,
So the CRA is a separate entity, but it has been positioned under the external services group, so under Assistant City Manager Chris Cooper, who would have oversight of development services, community services, and the CRA.
Can we ask questions? Do you mind if we ask questions?
Absolutely.
On a general level,
Yeah.
I wanted to take the opportunity to celebrate the fresh approach that I think it's a unique opportunity for the city and for us at BAR to have fresh blood and a fresh approach. Sometimes new is not necessarily good because it's new, but it's a different approach. I think you're taking a bold approach to get that, and I think it's a sign of leadership already. I encourage you to do that, and my experience in the corporations and even as a small business owner has always been that change is sometimes disruptive for people, and then they realize it's a better opportunity for them to grow and to learn and to be new. So I think you should not apologize for any of this. I think as about we should be supportive of that. That being said, and I think you're approaching functional silos and just, renewing the organization towards functionality across the department. I think it's a very smart approach. It's going to be more productive. I have a few questions in general. With that new organization, will you take an opportunity to establish new metrics of success and performance? Because I've seen during my first months in that each department presents some criteria of success, response time for fire, various, but sometimes missing some essential metrics that I think should be there. So I hope you are looking at that as well, because fresh ore means potential better performance objective and criteria. The other question
Can I
before
respond to that?
we can do that
Okay,
separately. Go ahead.
so, yes, I would like to look at the performance metrics for, not only the new departments being created, but the existing departments, but what I would like to do first, or, as soon as possible, is to look at the, performance appraisal process for members of the leadership team and, how we look at success over the year. Are we doing a report of what happened, or are we doing a report of what happened against what we wanted to see happen? So yes, to your question, but I also want to do it on the individual level as well.
When shall we see some of it or the spirit of it as about? Is there an opportunity for us to see that soon?
I think I can work with the chair, work with Laura and Yvette to determine what's the best timeline for that. For sure, for the new departments, we will have goals established before the start of the fiscal year.
Okay, second question, with reorg, often comes the opportunity for budget cuts or savings. Given the big picture that we got from Scantech with the challenge of expenses overcoming our revenue for fiscal year 2027, unless we recommend change in ad valorem, are there budget cuts that you already have approached with heads of departments? I think in front of the workshop commission, you touched on that, but we didn't hear much. So what came out of that, and shall we see something of that?
So a few things here. This budget proposes a lot of capital projects, including projects that we anticipated for future fiscal years. So we're wanting to advance a lot of projects now because we anticipate that 27 might be rough. We also have a budget amendment coming up that incorporates the PFAS settlement that we anticipate for the current fiscal year. So we're looking at our fiscal year 27 CIP, and we're saying, okay, what are the projects here that we can bring forward now so that we don't have that level of burden going forward? This budget year, we were very fortunate between the fire assessment and the other settlement that we have. We've been able to do projects that we have had on the shelf for a little while. What I've challenged the departments to do, and because of the time in which I joined the city, the departments that are working on potential revenue generating initiatives, we're going to be bringing that forward to the VAB for next year. And so there are a couple groups that are working on projects now, and we even brought one up at the last meeting. It was about the business tax, and I know it was a big conversation. But those are things that we want to develop and then come back next budget season and say, hey, this is what the recommendation is and how we can generate some revenue here.
And last question, you already have leadership in mind or established for these new city departments out there?
For
How
most,
much of it do you have?
so
leadership?
for most of them, we're looking at existing leaders within the department. This budget creates opportunities for members of our existing team to step up. And I'm also looking at advertising some of the positions that would come out of this realignment to see if we have talent on the outside that we might want to bring in. But overall, I mean, we're not proposing any layoffs in this budget, and so everyone on the team now has a place here if they're ready to, continue to do great work and to be part of the team. I embrace that, but largely these are positions that already exist. These leaders already exist, and we are just hoping that the commission is supportive so that we can transition some of those great leaders into new roles.
And so with that, we'll transition to procurement services. So the city manager already spoke a lot about the reason behind this change, but what we wanted to show you all is where the positions were coming from. So the finance department had 70 positions, or 70 FTEs in FY 2025. 14 of those are being pulled out to make the procurement department. These were all included in the procurement division. So they were already a separate division within the finance department. And again, just to make sure that we're focusing on, efficiently procuring, securing contracts, contract management, and how we negotiate is really a big part of our success. FNC, again, this was part of the city manager's office as well as Stratcom. And so what you'll see in the next slide is how it breaks out. So the city manager's office last year had 56 FTEs in it. 13 of those are strategic communications employees, which are being pulled out to make the Office of Strategic Communications. 21 were from the Executive Airport, which are creating the Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, which is a department. And then the city manager's office will have 22 individuals, again, significantly streamlining the size of the city manager's office, but also focusing on some new initiatives that the city manager's office wants to further develop to make sure that we're providing the best service for the city. And some of those things are focusing more on intergovernmental affairs, so our lobbying efforts and how we relate to other organizations that advance the city's mission, as well as our real estate team. P3s has become a really big part of our city and the way that we handle business. In the last meeting, we showed you all our real estate portfolio and all of the leases that we have. And so this will ensure that we have the appropriate people in place to manage that portfolio. The last part is the utilities department, and you've heard a lot about our utilities efforts from our Prospect Lake Clean Water Center. But one of the things that's important to note here was Public Works was 502 employees. And so that is a very large organization. And so what this does is it splits out those things that are actual plant activities and makes them the utility services department. And that's about 324 individuals. And then it allows for Public Works to be a little less than 200 individuals. One of the things that's important to note here is to ensure alignment with the work that our Chief Waterway Officer is doing. They will also become part of the Public Works team, which includes all of our environmental related activities, our sustainability initiatives. Our Public Works team will continue to manage fleet operations, our stormwater operations, and our roadway maintenance activity. And so even though it's splitting the organization, it's still a very big mandate for both of these groups.
If I could just add something. So part of the realignment also includes looking at some of the personnel that are in place and what their functions are. So what we found is that we have individuals performing let's say, for example, human resources related functions, but they're not a part of the human resources department. So we're making sure that now those positions are directly tied to HR so that we promote more accountability and oversight and, you know, so that we can make sure that we're following best practices throughout the organization. We saw that as well with IT related functions that lived in certain departments, and now we're ensuring that those positions are tied to the IT department. So just wanted to add that as part of the realignment.
And so really that outlines, you know, the way that the organization is changing and where the positions are coming from. We just wanted to make sure we showed you all step by step how things were being broken down and what the results. Are there any questions?
Would it make sense, I mean, from the outside, my immediate reaction was, why is member support not part of the community services? It seems that in your functional approach of gathering talents around the same orientation, functional orientation, it would make sense, but it's a.
No, that was definitely a thought. It was something that I debated, and I felt that a component of the neighbor support team, which would remain in the manager's office, you know, I really appreciate having my ear to the streets and knowing what's going on, what's the pulse of the city. And so having the neighbor support team that, you know, they go out to the civic association meetings and they're very engaged with the community. I wanted to have that portion of neighbor support in the manager's office so that we could be responsive and, you know, hey, this is what our neighbors are saying. But the other portion of the neighbor support team that does homeless initiatives, they would be going to the community services department. Yeah.
And the other question that comes up, can you just remind us on how many assistant city managers we used to have 3 months ago, and how many assistant city manager acting, not acting? I get lost.
Okay.
Who do we have after this reorganization?
You know, I can try to go back a little further, and we have historians in the room that maybe could do it better than I could. But under Greg Chavarria, a former city manager, there were, I believe, 2 assistant city managers. Under Susan Grant as acting city manager, so she was one of those ACMs under manager Chavarria, and Susan then became acting manager. And Susan at that time made the decision to have 3 acting assistant city managers in addition to the permanent, so to speak, assistant city manager that was in place. So we had acting city manager Grant with 3 acting assistant city managers and 1 assistant city manager. When I came on board, it became 3 acting assistant city managers and 2 assistant city managers. At this time, I'm proposing to have 4 permanent assistant city managers, which memorializes the format under acting manager Grant. So it adds 2 permanent assistant city managers.
So a little less and redistribution.
And if you look at the org chart, I think the first one, you see how the ACMs, their portfolios are organized. I am looking for a 4th assistant city manager to join the team with budget approval, and that ACM will focus primarily on capital project delivery.
It's great. I mean, when you work in government, I think we get stuck in, this is the way we've always done it. So, you know, I commend you also for taking a step out and saying, we need to look at this a little differently. So it'll be rocky for a little bit, sometimes change, but you know, it'll settle down.
And the team has been wonderful.
Yeah.
I've taken them on a roller coaster, especially the budget team. And you know, the senior leadership team, everyone has been very agile. And I think the challenge for us going forward now is to bring the rest of the team on board, our 3,000 staff members, just making sure that they understand what these changes are, how it impacts them or doesn't impact them, and what they do every day, just to make sure that we are messaging consistently and that everyone understands what's being proposed and recommended for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked, a lot of it, I think, obviously, you have your work cut out for you, and communication is key. I was in previous life in the music business, when, they went from physical to digital, and it was constantly reorganizing the entire department, shutting down entire plants, et cetera, every year, and it was tough. But I think, the success came down to the operations team, being in constant communication and appearing to accept feedback, and I think you do that well, so I'm looking forward to everything.
I just want to applaud you for hitting the ground running so quickly. It's
Yeah.
really appreciative doing that. And change is always good. And look forward to some great things happening.
Much appreciated.
What I would say is, I think it's from the way you brought here is to get city and to make changes that are gonna make positive impact on Fort Lauderdale. So I can say that I agree with you, but you're true that all employees have a spot. And again, of course, they have to perform and do their jobs, but I think some of these are good changes, and making some of the positions permanent, I think will help also too, to help people, move forward and understand, okay, now I'm giving you the ball, okay, let's go get the touchdowns. So I applaud you, and I'm glad you're doing this, and I support it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say, echo the same sentiments. Carl, I think we wanted a fresh approach, and you've definitely applied that here, and so definitely excited to see how things go, and I'm glad you're investigating this new approach. And essentially it seems like you're going from, well, what you have now is 10 departments under 3 city managers, and ultimately you'll be with 14 under 4 is what it looks like. And you guys, and
3 of the departments will report directly to me, so fire, police, and
fire, police, and strategic, right? And then with the remaining, the way it's broken out now, the 14 on the chart, actually, I guess it's the next, oh yeah, no, it's this one. So each assistant city manager, as we approach, in the future, it will be a similar assignment where they'll have their direct department reports.
So this organizational chart was produced prior to the reorganization of the city manager's office.
Okay,
So that's why you don't see it broken out into
And that one.
city managers just across the board. But also, maybe you'll notice that the CRA has its own box. In the past, it was like a bullet point, and I think what we've all realized is that the CRA is not really a bullet point. It's a big entity and has a lot going on there, and so I didn't wanna minimize or message that we were minimizing the role of the CRA and the responsibility that comes with it. So you'll see it there represented as a department, but it really is its own entity.
Gotcha, okay. No, great, thank you for clarifying.
I have one more quick thing, so Landon, I think you have, really have some experience with this, you do corporate restructuring, a lot of times you're bringing outside consultancy, it's extremely expensive. Is that something that's on the horizon at all, you're sort of doing this from your fresh perspective, with your staff, correct, there's no.
No,
It's very
there's no
expensive.
consultant that's involved, I didn't wanna spend the money there,
It's very expensive very quickly.
but I have had discussions with members of the team, and I have, shared my thoughts all along the way with our mayor and commissioners, and I think a lot of this comes as no surprise. I think I've been talking about a lot of this throughout, even before my tenure. And so I think this is just a reflection of my observations and the things that I've learned thus far since being part of the city.
Yeah, sometimes people will bring them in and the decision's already made, but then it's sort of like, well, liability and responsibility can be pointed to someone else if something goes bad. So that was sort of the reason behind a lot of it, restructuring. So I'm happy we're not doing it.
I mean, there's a lot of risk involved. I recognize that making those changes like this, everyone is gonna wanna know, is it gonna work? Is it gonna perform the way that we thought it would? And so that's on my shoulder, but it's also on the shoulders of all of our, team members in leadership So we're doing this together. It's an investment in the future. We don't wanna have to do this again and again and again, especially because this organization hasn't experienced anything like this in quite some time.
I just want to add, I have been on this board for more than 6 years, and I've been through at least 3 city meetings. So it is really refreshing to see you come on board and wish you all the best.
Is there any other?
Yes.
Yeah, from my perspective, I was just, I thought it was very refreshing. So I think thank you for taking it on. You do have a lot of work ahead of you, but I think you have a great team.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And hats off to the budget team. I say ideas out loud and they put them on paper.
Vice Chair,
Oh,
Bill.
Bill.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bill, I
Okay.
can't see you, so. Sorry about that.
Okay. I just want to compliment the city manager. This is a major paradigm shift. But when earlier it was mentioned about outcome performance measures and everything, I think the biggest performance major that we're going to should see from this is the increase in accountability. We've heard for the citizens have often talked about there seems to be a lack of accountability within all the departments. When questions were asked of department heads, they'd have to get back with you because as the city manager mentioned, they were just overwhelmed because they had so much. It was different areas that were beyond their span of control. And I think this realignment is going to be a positive paradigm shift that will allow for that span of control to improve accountability and performance measures at the same time, looking at cost saving measures. So again, as you've heard from the other members of the BAB, you're to be commended for taking this bold approach and moving the city forward as we progressively grow. Thank you.
I'm just, and I kind of think I'm gonna ask you that, are you looking for recommendations to send to the commission from us,
So typically at this meeting, you receive the budget books, you receive an overview of the proposed budget, you'll have some time to go back to your offices, and look at this, and then recommendation will be made at the August meeting and preparation for the August meeting. If you're prepared to do that today and wanna cancel August, do that. I mean, it's really your discretion, but the typical cadence is today you receive the proposed, and then in August, weigh in the recommendations.
I don't really want to wait.
No, we need to digest a lot. I have another comment, question. I played with the balancing act tool today.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. I didn't know that existed. I suppose you had it for a few years before.
Many years. So
How many interaction do you generally get from the public? Real interaction with recommendations?
yeah, so one of the things that I encourage everyone to do is play with balancing act and make sure you hit submit. So we get a lot of interaction. We don't get a lot of submission. And submissions really allow you to show, we gather all of that information, we share it with the commission in advance of the first public hearing. So by hitting submit, your recommendations are actually recorded and we're able to share that information. But we usually get a couple hundred people that click on it, but the actual submissions is very low.
Okay, so we need a sample big enough so that we have a pulse, like
Right.
Mikael said earlier, on the community and there. I mean, not everybody is gonna react, not everybody is gonna play, but the people who can play and understand how it can affect, I think it's a great feedback.
And those of you who haven't touched it yet, Balancing Act, so if you go to fortlauderdale.gov/budget, there's a link to a software called Balancing Act. And it's a website, so you get to be the city manager, you get to provide feedback on what decision packages should move forward. You get to be the budget advisory board, really, because you get to really comment on what should be moving forward, whether or not certain departments, the funding should go up, should go down. And it allows us to get a capture of the sentiments of the community. But again, the more people we have, the better the data is.
I didn't submit because I was only 1.7 million lower than, and I think harder because it was not enough. But I really encourage my fellow board members to play with it. I think it's a great feature. I mean, transparency, engagement, if we can promote that, and Stratcom should probably do that. I think it's a great tool, and it shows your approach. I think it's a very good illustration. And I think if the city commission and your office are really interested in taking some of the comment and feedback, it would be a great opportunity. So bravo for that tool. I just discovered it.
We even use it with employee, for employee, what do we call it? The introduction, employee orientation, because even as staff, sometimes we're like, oh, our department should get all of the money. And then you see it become red and you realize what the implications of that are. So it's a great way to communicate that for every decision, there's a balance.
You don't have much budget cuts coming out of employee.
We use an offline version for employees, so it doesn't get mixed with the general public.
Vice Chair, will we have that information back to share to the board for our next meeting prior to the workshop, the results of that?
Absolutely, we can pull that information before the next
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. You don't have anything else?
There is nothing else.
Are there any other board comments?
I was just thinking that in the next month, one thing just I may try to do as a neighborhood leader, and I don't know if there's a way to encourage other neighborhood leaders to share the tool, the balance tool, because I felt like that's one thing if we consciously are pushing it out to our residents, you know, not just from your office, Office of Strategic Communication, but also if the neighborhood presidents are aware and pushing that out to their residents, I feel like there'll be more activity. And the residents can at least, they can say they were informed, you get to be a part of the process. And citizen engagement. So just looking at it from the neighborhood level, like.
I thought the same thing. I wonder how much.
When is the next council association meeting?
Bill, I was actually thinking about that. Bill, when is next council meetings in August?
Yes, and then we have the second meeting will be the joint workshop. Let me look at
Yeah, but that would be a great.
I think we meet on the 12th, correct me if I'm wrong, let me look, August 12th. I'm bringing up the calendar now.
August 13th here.
15th, and then the following week is when we have the joint workshop with the commission.
But Chairman, I think Melinda was suggesting advertising or demonstrating the balancing act tool at the Council of Port Idle Civic Association. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
They could send it out maybe we could ask the council to send that out, Bill, to all the HOA presidents and all the members of that, because that's a good group to disseminate the information.
Yeah.
Before the meeting. I don't know if we're meeting in July, we're meeting August, I think, right?
Yeah,
The council, right?
The council's next meeting, I think, would be it would be August 12th.
That would be enough time to.
Correct.
That wouldn't be enough time.
Maybe we could ask the council to.
Maybe do an email.
Just do an email blast.
Yeah.
And we'll have them it'll be placed on next week's board meeting agenda for the council. And that way the board can start working on with all the district area board members to start getting that information out after the board meeting prior to our August meeting.
That sounds great, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a resource anywhere for the balancing act where it just gives an overview of it? my website, I just went right to my phone, so.
Oh, yes, so when you log on, there should be a pop-up that explains exactly how to use it, so it explains that it's a engagement tool. And then as soon as you click off of that box, you're literally on the site. You can either approve or disapprove decision packages. If there are revenue enhancements that you're recommending, it provides an opportunity to click on that and provide comments on revenue enhancements. So all of those things can be entered right.
Charmaine sent the document and the link, last week, I think, right?
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and get that out. If there are no other comments or new business, then I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Melissa.
We always forget about How's your summer going? Yeah, hey, it's like July's supposed to go like a lull, I think, but it doesn't really.